Coming up on Network Africa. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa joins key party meeting on the new government formation in the country. Two tornadoes claim 11 lives in South Africa's second most populous province, Kwazulu-Natal. Plus, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov wraps up his tour on the continent, visiting N'Djamena in Chad. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. Network Africa begins in South Africa. The country's ruling party, the African National Congress, is suggesting forming a government of national unity after losing its parliamentary majority in last week's elections. It says it has reached out to all parties, but negotiations are still underway. On Thursday, President Cyril Ramaphosa met with senior officials of the party to decide how to go about forming a government. The party's National Executive Committee was meeting in Johannesburg to work through a split within the party's ranks over which direction to take. The ANC has indicated it's leaning towards a government of national unity that will bring together many of the political parties in a broad agreement rather than a direct coalition with the main opposition, the Democratic Alliance.
To go to every city and suburb to account to the people of South Africa so that we could listen to their views and concerns.
In the meantime, 11 people have been confirmed dead in Kwazulu-Natal province after at least two tornadoes hit the country's second most populous province on Monday, leaving a trail of destruction in South Africa's coastal province. Local authorities also confirmed over 55 injuries. The tornado in the western KwaZulu-Natal region occurred near the cities of Newcastle and Utrecht. A second, more massive, took place around Tongaat and moved towards the coast at Westbrook and Balito, leaving more extensive damage. The provincial government says that at least 120 people have been displaced. 3 temporary shelters have been established where the affected families are receiving humanitarian aid. Joining us now is our correspondent in South Africa, Innocent Samosa, for more on the ANC seeking a government of national unity. Hello, Innocent. Uncharted waters here for the political sphere in South Africa. How are other parties reacting to the ANC's suggestion?
Well, indeed, Layo, a very good afternoon to you, or should I say good evening to you and our viewers around the world. It's always good to talk to you. Indeed, uncharted waters, a lot of moving parts here in South Africa when it comes to the political landscape. In fact, it has been an interesting time for anybody who has been following politics, who follow politics here in South Africa. Indeed, we have seen the likes of Action SA. This is a party that was aligned to the Democratic Alliance. They had a multi-party charter whereby they thought they will be able to actually garner more votes to remove the African National Congress. So therefore, we're seeing a splinter. We're seeing them really, breaking apart in a way, because there are these talks around the issues around the coalition, the possible super coalition between the African National Congress and the main opposition party, which is the Democratic Alliance. And of course, that has not sit well with many cadres in the African National Congress, particularly the tripartite alliance in the African National Congress, the likes of the South African Communist Party, COSATU, NUMSA, all of these parties. They're saying that they will actually disengage themselves from the African National Congress in an event if it goes to a coalition with the Democratic Alliance. Indeed, they've been meeting today, the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress at Beachwood Hotel. We do know that the president will be addressing the nation later on today to announce of whether or not they are going into a coalition with the DA or they're going to a coalition with IFP or whichever party that they're going to a coalition with. So he'll be talking to us, he'll be addressing the nation later tonight. But I can tell you now that it's a different time altogether when speaks about politics in South Africa. Layo?
Yes, indeed, Innocent. And is this allowed, by the Constitution, forming a unity government rather than a direct coalition?
Well, according to the Constitution, if there is no outright majority, if there's no outright winner, this could very well be that a coalition government has to be formed, not necessarily a government of national unity, because a government of national unity would allow a legislation to take place. And at this point in time, we do not a living legislation that allows a government of national unity. So that this could very well be that the ANC, in fact, is suggesting a government of national unity that would actually come with a legislation to be passed, of course, in Parliament to allow a government of national unity. But of course, there are different options here, Layo, that the ANC has. They have the DA, the Democratic Alliance. This is the main opposition party, as I've indicated. But also they've got the Economic Freedom Fighters, which was the third largest political party, but now they are replaced by the newly formed Umkhonto weSizwe Party, which of course is led by former President Jacob Zuma. So the EFF is saying that they can work with the ANC, but they have conditions. They want to have more. They want to have a control of the financial portfolio, and also they want to have a hand in who becomes the Speaker of Parliament. But also they want President Ramaphosa to resign. But Fikile Mbalula, the Secretary General of the ANC, has made it clear that if a party wants to work with the ANC, they should divorce an ideology to suggest that Ramaphosa will resign. So here we find ourselves, but we waited to hear the president to hear which party he's going to go with in this particular coalition, Layo.
And also, the leaders are under some time pressure to decide on the way forward. The newly elected parliament must sit for the first time by June 16, with one of its first priorities to elect a president, isn't it?
100%, Layo. So, in fact, on the 17th of June, that's when we will know who is the president of South Africa. But also, the ANC can also form a majority without the Democratic Alliance, in that they can have smaller parties like the IFP, like the Patriotic Alliance. But with all of these values that they bring to the party, it's not going to work, Layo, because, well, we've seen it working with the likes of the Good Party, where they've incorporated a smaller party and they gave them a ministerial position. But with these smaller parties, it might complicate the issue, Layo. I guess one party would do for a coalition with the African National Congress, but there are other members of the African National Congress, Layo, who are saying that if the ANC goes into bed with the DA, they would leave the African National Congress. And it begs the question, where does this leave the ANC then? Do they want the ANC to go to the opposition benches? And if whether or not they go to a coalition with the DA, does it mean that the DA will compromise its values? Does it mean that the DA will now allow Russia? Will they shake Putin's hand? Will they allow ANC stance with regards to the Israel-Gaza conflict? So it does complicate a lot of things when it comes to foreign issues. It remains to be seen, like, for now. It's a wait and see game if whether or not the ANC will definitely go into a coalition with the Democratic Alliance.
Indeed, and we'll wait for President Ramaphosa's address this evening, you say. Thank you so much, Innocent Samosa, our correspondent in Johannesburg.
Thank you, colleague.
Well, Spain says it will ask the International Court of Justice for permission to join South Africa's case against accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. Foreign Minister Jose Alvarez says this is because of the ongoing military operation in Gaza. Well, Spain is the first European country to take the step after South Africa filed its case with the International Court of Justice late last year. It alleged that Israel was breaching the Genocide Convention in its military assault in Gaza. Mexico, Colombia, Nicaragua, Libya, and the Palestinians have already requested to join the case. Well, back in May, Spain, Norway, and Ireland formally recognized the Palestinian state in a coordinated effort by the three Western European nations to add international pressure on Israel. The UN humanitarians say that conflicts in Sudan and across the Sahel region have compromised protection for migrants who continue to face horrors on major migration routes to Europe. A new report from the UN Refugee Agency confirmed that each year, hundreds of thousands of people risk their lives to migrate from sub-Saharan countries in Africa without access to immediate assistance, shelter, or information about the dangers they may face, even though the location of major movement hubs is well known. Vincent Cochetel, UNHCR Special Envoy for the Central Mediterranean Situation, says the absence of critical services place refugees and migrants at great risk of harm and even death.
Many don't go through capital cities where humanitarian actors are based, well represented. They embark into secondary routes, reaching smaller cities, smaller communities in hard to reach area. And that's where the services should be located. Our capacity to partner directly with local authorities is missing. Yet those local authorities are there. They are located on those routes that are used for migrants and refugees. They are located in places where humanitarian actors cannot be present, either because of safety concern or because the authorities don't want humanitarian actors to be present. But the local authorities are there, and they could be able to provide those immediate protection service.
In the meantime, the United Nations top humanitarian official Martin Griffiths will be stepping down from his post at the end of this month. However, he says he is leaving with a sense of work unfulfilled because the world is in a worse place now than when he joined in 2021. Mr. Griffiths is the UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator. Citing the situation in Sudan, he says there's an absence still of UN efforts to stop the conflict, desperately worried about the situation in Darfur.
I leave this job with a sense of work unfulfilled because the world is a worse place now than when I joined up in 2021. Humanitarian diplomacy is both an opportunity for us to do good for the world, but also in its ubiquity is a reminder of the absence of classic political diplomacy. In Sudan, we see the absence still of efforts to stop that conflict. We are desperately worried about El Fasher, 800,000 civilians at risk there. The humanitarian situation in Sudan has grown worse, and it is a place where two men basically decided that they were going to resolve their differences through fighting, that they were going to take the country down, that we have a situation where highly likely we will have up to 5 million Sudanese people at risk of famine. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the program. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has wrapped up his Africa tour, ending in N'Djamena, Chad. Well, during his working visit, the veteran minister met with his Chaldean counterpart, Abderrahman Koulamala. He was wrapping up his visit, which included stops to Guinea, the Republic of Congo, and Burkina Faso this week. Central and Western Africa have been considered as France's sphere of influence for decades. However, Mr. Lavrov, during a press conference, emphasized that Russia's relations with Chad are not directed against other countries. Russia this year will mark 60 years of diplomatic ties with Chad. Back in January, the Chadian President Mahamat Debi Itno visited Russia, meeting with President Vladimir Putin. And this is Mr. Lavrov's first time in the country. "22 Chinese nationals have pleaded guilty to committing cyber-related crimes in Zambia. They are among 77 suspects who were arrested in April in connection to what authorities described as a sophisticated internet fraud syndicate. The swoop on a Chinese-run company in the capital, Lusaka, followed an alarming rise in internet fraud cases in the country, targeting people in countries around the world. According to local media, the Chinese nationals are set to be sentenced on Friday. Authorities lament there have been increasing cases of Zambians losing money from their mobile and bank accounts through money laundering schemes, which extend to foreign countries. People in countries including Singapore, Peru, the United Arab Emirates, and others across Africa have also been targeted in the online scam. A Nigerian man, Ezekwesili David Ayagbu, is scheduled to be elected the vice chair of the 79th session of the United Nations Second Committee Bureau. This is taking place at the election of officers ceremony for the session of the UN General Assembly holding in New York. The last time a Nigerian was elected as one of the principal officers of a UN annual session was in 2019, when Ambassador Tijani Mohamed Bande was elected as the president of the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Nigeria's candidate, Mr. Ayagbu, before now coordinated on behalf of the Group of 77 and China the UN resolution promoting investments for sustainable development on 3 consecutive occasions. He also facilitated and coordinated in national capacity the UN resolution strengthening voluntary national reviews through country-led evaluation that was adopted by the UN General Assembly on the 26th of April, 2023. Here in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu has met with a delegation of the International Finance Corporation, a member of the World Bank Group, led by the Managing Director, Makta Diop, at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The meeting, which took place in the office of the President, also had present the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, the Minister of Finance, Wale Edu, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zacchaeus Adedeji, and the Special Advisor to the President on Media, Ajuri Ngalale. It is understood that after the meeting, the duo of the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning met with the President. The Minister of Finance had been given a deadline by the President on Tuesday to come up with figures to be presented to the organized labor at the Tripartite Committee on the new national minimum wage. While leaving the meeting with the President, the Minister of Finance told journalists there is no cause for alarm. In Kogi State, the government has assured residents of regular water supply in Lokoja, the state capital, before the end of the year. The State Commissioner for Water and Natural Resources, Mr. Yahaya Farouk, stated this at a news conference. He explains that regular water supply to residents will only be possible after the rehabilitation of the Greater Lokoja Waterworks and the Old Waterworks at the Pata area of the capital.
It's surrounded by River Niger and Benue, but Kogi State, which is identified as a confluent state, continues to suffer from a lack of pipe-borne water. In 2010, the administration of Ibrahim Idris completed construction work on the Greater Lokoja Water Project to supply potable water to residents, but without adequate connection to other communities. The 2022 flood disaster led to the malfunctioning of the facility. Now residents have to rely on alternative water sources, either from the river or vendors, popularly called Merua.
Since the creation of the Lokoja Greater Water Works, not one single inch of pipe has been added for reticulation. But we do not have the political mindset, the courage to go on and provide our people with water. And it's very shameful that over the years, politicians have played lip service to this, and it's beginning to show clearly that they are not willing to do it, not that they're not able to do it.
Honestly, we don't have water at all in these quarters. The government water did not come to these quarters at all. We used to buy water from this malam called popularly known as Merua, and is biting harder. A truck now is 1,000 naira as I'm speaking to you today.
To discuss the situation, journalists have been invited to a parley in Lokoja. The Commissioner for Water Resources, Honorable Yahya Farouk, begins by reeling out the extent of damage.
In every water treatment facility, the most prized section of that area is the high lift pump station. Because whatever you do in the water treatment facility, it is the high lift pump station that pump the treated water to our homes. So now these facilities were submerged for about 8 weeks. So, and as at that time, not now, as at that time, 2022, each of these pumps just cost alone is not less than 350 million.
The options being explored by the current administration to revive the greater Lokoja waterwork is also highlighted. The present administration plans to complete the water project by expanding its supply capacity to 15 million litres per day and reticulates the waterworks to cover Lokoja and its environs.
The Lagos State government, through the Lagos State Blood Transfusion Services, has announced that it has saved over 1.5 million lives and recruited more than 2 million blood donors since the agency's inception. This was disclosed by the State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, during a symposium commemorating the 20th anniversary of LSBTS held in Ikeja. Well, he says despite the increasing number of blood donors annually, the state still relies on various forms of coercive blood donation. Professor Abayomi appeals for collective and concerted efforts to encourage voluntary blood donation.
Providing safe blood for patients who need transfusion is a major responsibility for the Lagos State Health sector, handled by the State Blood Transfusion Services. For 2 decades, the Lagos State Blood Transfusion Services has lived up to the billings, ensuring emergency cases related to blood issues are attended to. In commemoration of the agency's 20th anniversary, health practitioners, including the State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, converged on Radisson Blu GRA Ikeja for a symposium focused on pioneering the path and shaping the future of blood services in Nigeria.
As we celebrate our achievements, we are showcasing and assuring you all of our commitment to continuous service improvement as we enhance blood donor recruitment and retention through awareness campaigns, youth and stakeholders engagements, capacity building, training and research.
In delivering better services to the people, the agency has been ranked among the first to commence the use of a WHO-recommended testing method and is poised to do more.
Lagos State was the first to enact a law for the establishment of a committee on blood transfusion in Nigeria, the first to commence the use of a WHO-recommended testing method.
We've done 20 years, but I believe this is the point where we can sit down and say, let's do a SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? What are our opportunities, our weaknesses, and our threats? And see how we can then have a strategic plan for the way forward for the next 20 years.
The keynote speaker, Major General Olatilewa Amusu, retired, emphasized the need to establish a centralized hemovigilance system for continuous quality improvement of the transfusion process.
We need to have donor retention strategies in place. With medical advances, especially where this involves treatment of serious illnesses and trauma, there comes an increase in transfusion of blood and blood components in order to improve patient outcome and to maintain health.
Professor Abayomi, who is representing Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, says having 130,000 voluntary blood donors in Lagos is not good enough and must be strengthened.
We in Lagos are not only going to make sure that the blood transfusion service has adequate infrastructure, and we are expanding access almost every year, not only in a central location but across our general hospitals. We are also trying to make sure that we move along with modern technology, and we're moving along the path of ensuring that we can guarantee, because even now there's always a small chance that we may miss something, which is why voluntary blood donation is so important as opposed to paid donations.
The event climaxes with an award presentation to the pioneer chairman, Lagos State Blood Transfusion Committee, Professor Ibironke Akinshete, former chairman of LSBTC, Dr. Adetong Agbe Davis, and the former commissioner for health, Dr. Lekek Piton, also got an award, which was received by Dr. Sholak Piton for their outstanding service to humanity.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.